Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Old Hunt, where we are still celebrating 10 years of Bloodborne. We have finally made our way after stopping in to make sure that Adela made it to Yosefka's clinic to see the imposter doctor and talking to Dura, and otherwise making our way through a crazy field of gun-toting enemies with their pet dogs that have been wired up to attack. We have made our way to Hemwick Charnel Lane, is the official translation. Hemwick Graveyard Street or something like that. I think might be a more literal one. I don't know why you want the more literal one, but in case you don't know what a charnel house is, maybe, I guess, right? The idea of this is not a charnel house where the bodies of the dead are kept. It is a charnel lane. But one thing I wanted to do sort of had me thinking when I came into this area and I was pointing out the vista. I think it'd be interesting to include at least a little bit in this sort of celebratory playthrough of Bloodborne. A little bit of an analysis of Bloodborne's presentation of its like story and the way you make your way through these areas, particularly because, right, when we start the game, literally everything is new. And so they're throwing everything at you, and you have to get acclimated. You don't know what the mechanics are. You don't know what the weapons are. You don't know how blood vials work. By this point in the game, you've sort of probably found your footing, and the pace of information that they've been throwing at you has started to slow down. Right? Not that it's particularly slow, but it isn't what it was at the beginning, where it was just this torrent of new stuff. And I think I remember I had a point where I stopped an episode and was like, "Listen." We're getting a lot thrown at us right now, and I've got a lot of things I want to cover, so we're going to, like, slow roll some of these items here. We're not going to go full speed ahead reading all these descriptions as soon as I get them. It's going to tear me in too many directions. I had that problem in Translationborn, and I have a little bit still now, but not nearly as badly as I did in Translationborn, in part because I knew to expect it. But anyway, I want to point out that, like, because not necessarily everything is new to us by this point in the game, and this is a little bit of an optional area, so it's sort of self-contained, it's an interesting way to take a look at the way that Bloodborne presents its story to us as we reach an area that is presenting new information on top of an existing base of information. And we've already, in making our way here, we've already picked up some things that will help us tell the story of Hemwick Charnel Lane. So let's take a look at them right now. One of the first things that we found, in fact, when we first took that left from the church, we found a corpse that had a ritual material on it, the bloodshot eyeball. So here we go. It was, again, the title, very straightforward, bloodshot eyeball. Eyeball with like blood running, or blood ran eyeball, if you want to be super literal. But the idea of an eyeball with blood running, like, in it, it's like that's just how you say bloodshot in Japanese. So bloodshot eyeball, basically what it is. And as I sort of gave away before I opened up the item description, this is, as the first line tells us, one of the materials for a holy chalice ritual. And let's see, what's the meat of the description here? All right, so once again, we're having this situation where we have a very, very long string of modifiers on a single noun that is the subject in the first part of the line, and then the conclusion in the second line there, the final line of the description. So let's see if I can get all these modifiers sorted out for the first line. Okay, so this beautiful eyeball, sort of wrenched out, either just after death or from a living human being, is a key that unlocks seals of the Hintertomb portion of the underground ruins. Sorry, I had to edit in this version because I didn't like Gameplay Matt's take, but I still agree with his thoughts on the meaning in general. So, again, you perform these chalice rituals and they unlock different seals that give you access to different parts of the chalice dungeon, or dungeons. This is one of the materials that we need if we ever want to access the portion of the underground ruins, the underground labyrinth, known as the Hintertombs. And I'm just going to lean on the official translation. It's something like, it's a made-up term. So the first kanji is something like out in the sticks, something like hinter, right? In the hinterland is where the hinter from Hintertomb is coming from. And then grave is the other one. So hinter, tomb. These tombs, graves that are far removed from the rest of developed to marry in culture society, like that's the idea. Anyway, so that's the bloodshot eyeball. We get one of those just for moving out in this direction, and we'll see eventually, we don't know it yet, but we'll see that it is tied to this place. And the other thing that we got in that alleyway with all of those people who use those guns, we get bone marrow ash, right? So let me go ahead and take a look at this description. This is an additional catalyst that increases the force of Quicksilver Bullets. That, presumably, we're talking about the item in question here, that is said to be a special bone marrow ash and appears to be produced in Hemwick Grave Street, right? Hemwick Charnel Lane. Hey, that's where we are now. I wonder what, all those enemies with guns were doing gathered around that place where they had this stuff that is an additional medium that strengthens Quicksilver Bullets. Just in front of Hemwick Charnel Lane, right? So we can already start to see how the enemy placement is reinforcing the idea that this is someplace that's going to be related to guns, because notably high number of enemies using guns there. And they're particularly guarding a material that increases the power of Quicksilver Bullets, which you fire from a gun, right? So already, before we come into Hemwick Charnel Lane, and this is also where we get sort of a pre-name drop of Hemwick Charnel Lane, so they make the stuff here, right? So in the world as well, it's not just the enemy placement, it's the location in the world placement that this is power up your bullets town from this special bone marrow ash, right? Hemwick Charnel Lane. And let's go to the final section here. Okay, so particularly for hunters who do not have excellent blood nature, this is a valuable means of increasing the force of gun strikes. So the idea is that if you don't have if your blood is not of a high quality nature, right? If you don't have good blood quality, which is the literal version, if you look at the stats over all the way on the right, second from the bottom there, just above our arcane stat, which it's us. Hey, we don't have particularly excellent blood quality, right? Quite literally, we see it's blood and then quality. The official translation there is blood tinge. I think it's very clever because it's sort of an unexpected term. It's not necessarily the route you think they would take, but the idea, I think it sort of gets at the idea of blue bloods, right? What tinges your blood? Is it more or less blue, as in more or less aristocratic? Are you from a higher or lower bloodline? Or is the nature of your blood different? Hi again, everyone. Editing Matt here, jumping in this time because I felt I should broaden the concept I've been discussing. The thing is, while I believe this term is in part meant to get at the idea of there being different grades of blood, that is, blood of higher or lower quality, I also think it's important to bear in mind that this isn't the only sense of the word quality at work. You can see this in the way the Japanese uses the phrase chi no seishitsu in the full description, which emphasizes how a given sort of blood's nature, disposition, or chemical quality is also at play. It's this aspect of the term that I think fits most nicely with the blood being the active ingredient in Quicksilver Bullets. This is perhaps made most clear in the Japanese version of the Quicksilver Bullets description, where the term mercury is directly modified by the phrase serves as a catalyst, meaning that blood is essentially acting as the main source of the damage dealt to beasts by these bullets, with the quicksilver in the name simply working to amplify its effect. With that understanding, then, it's not hard to imagine how the term blood quality could be referring to the specific property or quality of blood that allows it to work as a weapon. Having said that, though, I don't think we're meant to discard the other sense of the term quality and its associations with aristocrats. For one straightforward example of this, consider how during character creation it is specifically the origin that ties you to an ancient bloodline that lets you start with the highest blood tinge, or blood quality. So it seems to me that both the chemical and the social senses of quality are meant to be at work simultaneously. Anyway, having clarified that, I'll let Gameplay Matt get on with his point. He was talking about how the idea of bloodlines is an important one in Bloodborne. And comes up in a number of ways, many of which, sadly, we're not going to see because it's locked behind a storyline that I've committed to not following. So, you don't send people to Erden Chapel. You don't get access to Adela's blood. You don't get access to Ariana's blood. And there's no DLC, so you don't get access to Saint's blood. Why am I blanking on her name? Adeline. You don't get access to Adeline's blood, right? So, it's just by the nature of this playthrough, we're not going to be investing a huge amount in looking at that particular aspect of Bloodborne, but it is there. And anyway, for people like us who don't have great, the right nature in our blood to like make powerful bullets with to fire out of our guns, we can bolster it with this additional medium of bone marrow ash. And I like how, this is in both languages, really. You have the idea of bone marrow, which produces blood cells, is the thing that you use to strengthen the bullets that you make out of your own blood, right? It works equally well in both languages, but it's just a nice little touch. So anyway, here we have this bone marrow ash, specially made in Hemwick Charnel Lane, powers up gun attacks. It's particularly useful for those who have bad blood tinge and they want to up the strength of their weapons. It's also really nice if you do have good blood tinge. Accentuate your strengths, right? And you can use it to good effect one way or the other. It's not like you only, right, like have to bolster the power of your strikes if they're weak. You can also bolster them if you're strong. And anyway, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, again, I want to try... unfortunately, I'm not particularly good at this sort of analysis, but I want to try my hand at it, again, because I feel like this is sort of a fun way of noticing and honoring 10 years of Bloodborne, noticing the way that it's put together, the way that its world already, before we've even officially got the title card that welcomes us to Hemwick Charnel Lane, we've got some items associated with it. All right. And we get that nice vista when we come in, and now we come down here and we get another set piece. Right? We get all these enemies, and notably, we can sort of roll to interrupt them, sort of like we could the enemies in the first area, so we don't have to be, like, super scared of their attacks. Also notable, you can see both visually, and if you listen to the audio, you can hear it in their voices. These are women. Yeah, very clear. And most of the beasts that we've encountered so far, not all, but most of the beasts that we've encountered so far have been male. These are female. Obviously, because all these beasts are at base, as Jura was telling us. All these beasts are people, or were people, and now they've been transformed into these beasts, but it's pretty notable that we have women in Hemwick, right? So we're noticing right away we have a different sort of enemy, even though it's sort of similar to the regular townspeople that we found in Yharnam, who are overwhelmingly male on the street, presumably because, those are the people who are out in the night of the hunt. We have a lot of women shut up indoors. But anyway, in Hemwick, things are different, right? So and we have more bloodshot eyeballs from this corpse on a guillotine, right? And that's interesting. Suggestive little thing here. We've got this sort of ratchet over there that can, I guess, draw the blade back up, and then they let it go. And this person's head has not been chopped off, but perhaps they were placed there in order to harvest their eyeballs. Interesting thing to take note of. But anyway, we're getting a little bit of variety from the enemies, and in addition to all this sort of cool theming, we've got statues. Very noticeable statue of a woman wielding like an iron, I want to call it a poker, but I guess it's just like a giant clothes iron, maybe? I don't know. Here we go. We can see the enemy. Maybe this was the person who posed for the statue, because that's definitely the enemy, the item. Of course, that particular iron is red hot, so there is that to be aware of. but yeah, so there's the item placement, the level placement, the design to like draw your eye to these different things, the different enemies. All of these are part of the way that Bloodborne is building its world. And of course, we have the graves everywhere, just all over the place. Graves, graves, graves. Hemwick Charnel Lane, we've got graves. Go figure. Also, when we come over here, we will find that we have another house with incense, right? So the people who are out here, the women who are out here, they may or may not have been doing regular work, but it seems like these are the sort of hunter women equivalents of the male hunter equivalents. Transformed, of course. They're not tied to the dream. There's nothing super special about them to preserve them on this particular night of the hunt. But we similarly have people in this place who are locked up inside. They've got the incense burners going to ward off the beasts, and we can talk to them at the windows.
Do you hear the graveyard murmurs? Then it's almost time. Oh, I can't wait. I just can't wait.
I don't know what that is about, right? What's the ritual, or maybe not even ritual? What's the event that this person can't wait for that's about to happen because she's hearing the graveyard murmurs, right? And how intensive, how real is that supposed to be? Is she going mad? Is she in touch with the arcane nature of reality and hearing the dead speak? I really, like, it's a mystery what's going on here. And the thing I like about this, sort of getting back to the whole story presentation of Hemwick and the introduction to this new area sort of thing, is like I was saying, you go in and you sort of expect a similar situation, and you get something unexpected. It's not someone who's like, oh, you're not from around here, be gone, leave me alone. It's not, nor is it a friendly person who wants to help you out on your way, like Gilbert or the little girl who maybe wants some help for themselves. No, this person is absorbed in what they're doing. If anything, this person is probably most like the person down in the cathedral ward who is just sort of looking to have fun and just like having a party, a great night of celebration. That might be a little bit preemptive, but just looking for a good time on the night of the hunt, right? That's what's going on here. So it's sort of like what we've seen before, but it's also not entirely familiar. And I like that. And also, you'll note, this is the other thing about this being an additional area, right? Again, I talked before, this isn't the beginning of the game. We just got some Madman's knowledge. So we don't have to look at that. We just, oh, I know what that is. That's Madman's knowledge. The person out here may be hinting at what's going on with the arcane nature of things happening in this house. Someone in here who died over here was exposed to some part of the nature of reality that we're able to extract from their skull. And, of course, we don't have access to this elevator yet. That's a very functional element of the design of Hemwick. And, of course, the other thing to point out about this particular area is it's fairly small, right? We got the whole part of Yharnam, this whole massive, expansive area. That's up where we came. We have this one circle with this fancy statue. We have that elevator route that's sort of closed off. And we've got this house with someone inside who's hearing graveyard murmurs. Okay? And then it's time to move on. And we'll see, you know, there's more to Hemwick, right? It's not like this is all there is to Hemwick. But Hemwick is not gigantic, which I think is another makes it another good candidate for exploring or taking a closer look at sort of what's going on with Bloodborne storytelling. And look, that dog looks familiar, right? We've seen it on the way here. Not used in the same way, right? But that dog is familiar. We have seen it before. I want to try and get back down the stairs. Here we go. I couldn't find the stairs because I knew that enemy would start throwing Molotov cocktails in my direction. Anyway, I mean, there's just the regular combat puzzle of things, right? You have an enemy with the high ground who's throwing Molotov cocktails as you're getting rushed by a dog and another regular enemy. And boy, that woman can throw Molotov cocktails. I wish I had that sort of range. Anyway, you've got the dog with the wires and everything that you've seen before. Again, it's tying into the area just ahead of it. So Hemwick sort of spills out in advance to its surroundings. And we've already seen, right? So this is obviously, I'm trying to analyze Hemwick. We haven't really known anything about Canehurst, but I've pointed out before, and I'll point out again, part of this overspill of the areas also works with the idea that Bloodborne presents you with things before you have their full context, right? So we've got this numbing mist associated with Canehurst. We don't even know what Canehurst is if we're just playing the game for the first time, and this is as far as we've come. So there's a lot going on in the way that it sort of sets up the parts of Bloodborne that are yet to come. And once again, this is the downside, I guess, of having a weapon that does fire damage, is that you set off those explosive urns one way or another. And I kind of wish I hadn't set off that particular explosion, but oh well, it happened. Not much I can do about it now. This is what happened to that enemy. She fell down. There you go. All right, also they drop blood vials. Right, this is still an area, I think this is in part just because it's fairly early in the game, but this is still an area where you can reliably get drops of blood vials from enemies. And that's sort of tying it in with all the enemies in Yharnam, right? There's a sort of a cohesion in all the Yharnam enemies we fought have been dropping blood vials. Not all enemies drop blood vials. Like the kidnappers mostly drop bloodstones. And so, right, I'm not sure how much you can read into the item drops in terms of the story, but it definitely helps sort of create a unifying theme, in addition to, of course, serving the benefit of saying, hey, we know you're probably looking to keep well stocked on blood vials, so we're going to have enemies that continue to drop them for you. Okay, do I have my gun out? I do, good. And this guy looks familiar, right? So we're also seeing, in addition to novel enemies and enemies that we were recently introduced to but aren't necessarily the same as the ones we've seen in the rest of Yharnam, we're also seeing other enemies from the rest of Yharnam. Now, that could just be because, there's only so many enemies that they could have time to make, and so they can just put them in the world and run them. But it also adds a little bit of cohesion to this entire world, right? Because it helps you know, okay, like Yharnam, I think that's Yharnam right over there, the gigantic clock tower. Maybe. Again, my video game geography is terrible, but presumably anyway, Yharnam isn't very far away, one way or the other. Maybe that's somewhere else. I can't tell. Anyway, like I said, my video game geography is absolutely awful, but we're not that far from Yharnam is the main point. And because of that, let's see, I think there's something over here. No? I feel like there's something I'm supposed to drop down in order to get. Maybe I'm confusing this with an area that's just up ahead. All right. I think I need to run past... Yeah, I have to prioritize the Molotov cocktail thrower up here. There you go. Yeah, how the tables have turned. But anyway, there's also a little bit of cohesion to the Yharnam enemies in the presentation here of Hemwick. So it's not purely an issue of, okay, it's everything's new, right? We're seeing a little bit of old mixed in. We're seeing a little bit of continuity mixed in. Pretty cool. All right, okay, this is one of the places where somewhere around here I need to drop for an item. I don't think it's here, because I think if it was, I would have gotten it already. I think it's over this way. Maybe? Oh, here we go. Enemy. All right. Let's go rally. All right. Get all that health back. Also, it looks like my fire gem has a health regeneration effect. And here we have a crow. All right, this isn't the drop-down area I was thinking of. This is another part. This is, I think, is just the next part of Hemwick. And I mean, the crows, we've seen the crows everywhere, right? I mean, in addition to sort of the people enemies of Hemwick and Yharnam, we're getting the wildlife of this place. And we saw some birds. I don't think they were actually those sorts of, I think they're called carrion crows. I don't think they're like officially carrion crows in the beginning that fly away for the set piece that opens Hemwick. But also, this is just a Bloodborne design thing, right? You've got this gate, which is clearly going to open. Doesn't open right now because it's closed by a device. But we can see ahead into where we're going to go, right? That place looks important, right? So there's a little bit of that going on as well. But, anyway, I guess there's nothing that I'm supposed to be dropping for. I think I maybe was just thinking of that enemy. I think in the past I would have dropped down above and attacked that enemy because I knew they were there. So that's probably what's going on in that scenario. Anyway, let's proceed with our explorations here. Whew, that's a lot of dead crows. Oh, I think I killed them all. There's one crow here who just does not attack, which is kind of a fun thing. And, of course, a bunch of pebbles to draw you over here. Like, a lot of Bloodborne's way of presenting areas really is just a study in ambushes, right? That's really all there is to it. But here we have, of course, a very important shortcut. Because even though it's just sort of a dinky little elevator ride, we are back now to this house right here, which is right by the entrance lamp. There we have it. And was there something? I feel like there's something behind one of these elevators, but I guess I came at that place from below before, and there was nothing super crazy about it, so. Oh well. Uh-oh. This enemy over here, that big guy over there, is sort of the one I have in my mind. Look at all that bone marrow ash, notably placed by a grave. Maybe it's the, I think by implication, you can find that the charnel lane is maybe burning these corpses to get the bone marrow ash. I think I want to make it all the way across this before engaging this enemy, and then back onto it. That interrupt, which is still most reliable when facing that particular foe. The reason I wanted to do this back here, even though, yep, right there, even though it's dangerous, is because I knew there was another Molotov cocktail thrower. So this is something else about the particular setup of Hemwick, is that you've consistently got these Molotov cocktail throwing enemies waiting in high positions or from afar. So they have their own sort of signature ambush thing going on that also gives the place a little bit of character. Maybe not the character that you would want, but it has it. But anyway, just to sort of abstract things a little bit, right? We've got the item placement, the location placement. I've talked about those things before. You've also got just the way that the backgrounds have been built and created, right? So clearly this is meant to, that item placement is meant to draw your eye up there and be like, ooh, I could get up there, right? That's just level design stuff, which is sort of cool. But there's also the storytelling stuff of like, oh, there's bone marrow ash behind those graves. Or there's that woman who we found on the guillotine and we got her eyeball. And what's that all about? Maybe there's sort of a set practice in place for, you take the corpse, you chop off the head, you burn them for the bone marrow ash, and then, on to the next part of the assembly line, right? I don't know if it necessarily works that way, but there is that aspect of things as well, right? So the way that the world is set up, the fantasy architecture of these places, even though it is fantastical, as we will soon see, we're about to be running across a bunch of rooftops in a way that I don't think makes a ton of sense if you're like doing a bunch of regular city planning. But still, there's a certain extent to which the architecture of Bloodborne's world and just sort of like the item, the corpse placements and things are set up to give you an idea of the story and what's going on, right? So there's a lot of things happening at once in that sense. Whew. All right, and I think that's a good amount of like analytical thought here. Oh, hello. Definitely want to catch this enemy. Look at that. Was not expecting it to be that weak to fire, even though I knew it was weak to fire. And again, we're getting a lot of these bloodshot eyeballs. So again, we're not getting yet really a lot of direct correlation, right? If we look at the text, right, there's not a strong direct correlation between bloodshot eyeballs and Hemwick. But we sure are finding a lot of them, and just that item placement is suggestive. Anyway, let me know, by the way, if this is getting really obnoxious. I think it's fun to think about, even though, as I've said, it's not my, strong suit when it comes to analyzing video games. I mean, there are people who literally devote their lives to this sort of storytelling and story crafting and presentation, right? But I do think it's fun to think about. So if you're having fun thinking about it along with me, if you have any thoughts that you think I've missed or that I've overlooked, that you wish I would emphasize or that you want to draw to other people's attention, point those out, please. And of course, we have these enemies, these wheelchair enemies, tend to have guns as well. So look at, and sure enough, this one has a gun, right? Hemwick, Charnel Lane, they've got the bone marrow ash strengthens guns, so it makes sense that he's here. Yeah. There's a lot of potential logic to analyze there. And this was the item that we could now look down on, we saw from below, and was drawing us up here, which was sort of a hint. It's why I didn't want to necessarily make the progress onto those rooftops that I could have made. Oop. So my eye is drawn, of course, to this lone item over here that I nearly ran right by. Very cool how that sort of happened, right? Just the natural camera movement I happened to catch. Oh, there's something over here. Turned out to be a blood gem. That might be handy. Very cool. All right, let's hopefully not fall down, although it's much less important now. There we go. It gives you a little bit of an impetus. That item, by the way, I'm back on the thought that I sort of abandoned partway because an item caught my eye in another sense, right? You could come out here, you could come out onto these rooftops, and this is sort of the main path through Hemwick on top of these roofs. But if you remember, hey, I never found that item on the second floor, you can go back and you've technically seen it from below. Okay, I always want to think there's an item in that little corner, and there never is, so go figure. I see you. I see your hammer. You can't hide from me. Okay. Here we go. And here we go. We've got the roofs like butting right up against this. Looks like street maybe, and all these graves. Right. This is how you know this is a video game sort of architecture thing going on. Also, look at this place. Look at this castle in the distance there. Pretty cool. The way it sort of lines up with this other house. Just, again, Bloodborne is a beautiful game. Hey, buddy. Oops. I guess I was on something of an incline. Am I dead? Okay, I'm not dead. Thought I was dead. I just barely survived. And now I'm getting ambushed by multiple enemies. Let's keep moving. Ow. Was not looking to get dinged by that brick. I was more expecting the poker. Okay. Alright. Yep. Yep. Die, die, die. I am once again preserved just barely. I don't want to keep going this way. There's more enemies that way. Man. I should have shot that enemy, is what I should have done. But that's okay. Whew. Boy. You think you're getting strong. You think you're getting good. You think you know the layout of a certain place and the enemy placement and all. You think you're real good at Bloodborne. And then you get something like that happens to you. Oh boy, that's funny. And this is why I didn't want to keep coming this way. It's because I knew we were bound to run into these enemies. And that was something I did not want to deal with. Okay. And thankfully, that enemy was behind the tree, which means her Molotov cocktails were not connecting. Just throwing it into the foliage there. All right, and I happen to know that there's an ambush around this corner, so I'm just going to run past it and not have to deal with this enemy attacking me. Yes, it burns. So long. Okay, and I think... I just want to make sure very quickly, because I was so worried of the enemies in this place here that I wasn't super paying attention to scanning the ground. But I think I got all the items out here. Yeah. So I don't have to worry about leaving anything behind. I am about to come across the gate that will allow me to access the first part of the area again. It's probably the most important shortcut in all of Hemwick. So I definitely want to make sure to open that gate. And we'll do that when these enemies are maybe not paying such close attention to me. And I think now is the time. May not have been the time. They may have spotted me. But the most important thing is I pull this lever, open this gate, and voila, we have the most important shortcut in Hemwick dealt with. Whew. All right. That was surprisingly difficult. Are these blood vials? Huh. I thought I picked those up. Huh. Interesting. Anyway, I'm glad to have them. I was thinking maybe I'd go back, but because I got those blood vials and now I'm up to 15, maybe I don't need to. I'm definitely thinking, having opened this shortcut, this is a decent length for an episode. So I think I will cut things off here. I will make a decision on whether or not I'll press forward or go back to... I'll probably just press forward. I know it's risky, but I want to live dangerously. But not right now. Not right now. For now, I'm going to call an end to my hunt for the evening, and I wish all of you good hunting.